In the annals of history, the Holocaust remains one of the darkest chapters ever written. Among the many horrific places of this era was Stutthof concentration camp, a name etched in infamy. This camp, located in northern Poland, became a symbol of suffering, where thousands of innocent people were subjected to unimaginable cruelty. Within this grim setting emerged figures who carried out the Nazis' inhumane policies with brutal efficiency. One such individual was Ewa Paradies, a female guard at Stutthof, whose actions during the Holocaust would later lead to her standing trial for crimes against humanity. Stutthof concentration camp was established in 1939, soon after the invasion of Poland. Initially serving as an internment camp for Polish political prisoners, it rapidly expanded into a fully operational concentration camp under the Nazi regime. Located near the Baltic Sea, it became a place of torment for Jews, Poles, and other groups deemed undesirable by the Nazis. Over the years, the camp grew in size and infamy. By 1942, it had become a part of the final solution, the Nazis' horrific plan to exterminate the Jewish population. Gas chambers, crematoriums, and mass graves became chilling hallmarks of Stutthof as the camp claimed the lives of over 60,000 people. Life in Stutthof was a nightmare for the prisoners. Hunger, disease, forced labor, and constant fear were their daily realities. The guards played an instrumental role in maintaining this brutal system, often meting out inhumane punishments with little provocation. Female guards, though fewer in number, were infamous for their cruelty. They were trained in camps like Ravensbrück before being assigned to places like Stutthof, where their brutality often rivaled or even exceeded that of their male counterparts. It was in this environment that Ewa Paradies began her journey as a Nazi guard, overseeing the suffering and deaths of countless innocent lives. Ewa Paradies was born in 1920 in northern Poland, a region deeply affected by the political turmoil of the early 20th century. Like many others in Nazi-occupied Europe, her life took a dark turn when the Nazi regime began its campaign of terror. While little is known about her early years, by her mid-20s, Paradies found herself aligned with one of the most notorious institutions of the era. In 1944, as the Nazi war machine began to crumble under the weight of Allied advances, the demand for concentration camp personnel increased. Paradies joined the ranks of female guards, known as Aufseherinnen, and was assigned to the Stutthof concentration camp. It's unclear whether she was motivated by ideology, coercion, or a desire for personal gain, but her actions during her time at Stutthof would leave a permanent stain on her legacy. At Stutthof, Paradies was tasked with overseeing prisoners, many of whom were emaciated while weak and clinging to life under the harshest conditions. Testimonies from survivors describe her as merciless, often wielding her authority with a sense of cruelty that bordered on sadistic. She was accused of beating prisoners, denying them basic necessities, and participating in the mass execution of inmates. While Paradies may not have directly operated the gas chambers, her role in guarding the camp and ensuring its brutal efficiency made her complicit in these atrocities. She, like many others in her position, became an integral part of a system designed to dehumanize and destroy. As the Allies closed in on the region, the Nazis began dismantling the camp, attempting to cover up their crimes. Guards like Paradies either fled or continued their roles with even more desperation and cruelty. However, for Paradies, the end of the war would not bring an escape, but a reckoning. By 1945, the Nazi regime was on the brink of collapse. Allied forces were liberating concentration camps across Europe, uncovering the unimaginable horrors hidden within. Stutthof, one of the last camps to be liberated, stood as a grim reminder of the Nazis' capacity for cruelty. As Soviet troops advanced, The Nazis hastily evacuated the camp, forcing thousands of prisoners on brutal death marches. These marches claimed countless lives, as weak and starving prisoners were pushed to their limits under harsh winter conditions. Many guards abandoned their posts during this time, attempting to blend into civilian populations or flee to avoid prosecution. Ewa Paradies was among those who tried to escape accountability. However, the Allies were determined to bring those responsible for the Holocaust to justice. In the months following the war, investigators began identifying and arresting individuals involved in the operation of concentration camps. Captured by Allied forces, Paradies was soon identified as a guard from Stutthof. Her arrest marked the beginning of her journey through the post-war legal system, where the world sought to hold her accountable for the suffering she had inflicted. The fall of the Third Reich not only exposed the magnitude of the Nazis' crimes, but also set the stage for one of the most significant efforts in history to prosecute war criminals. For Ewa Paradies and others like her, the end of the war was not an escape from justice, but the beginning of their reckoning. After her capture, Ewa Paradies faced one of the first major war crime trials of the post-war era. In 1946, she, along with other personnel from Stutthof, stood trial in what became known as the Stutthof Trials. These trials, held in Gdansk, Poland, were pivotal in bringing to light the atrocities committed in the camp and the roles played by its guards. Prosecutors presented damning evidence against Paradies. Survivors testified to her acts of brutality, describing her as a cold and ruthless enforcer of the camp's inhumane policies. Witness accounts painted a harrowing picture of her involvement in beating prisoners and her complicity in the systematic murder of thousands. These testimonies, coupled with the physical evidence from Stutthof, left little doubt about her guilt. The trial was not just about the crimes of individuals like Paradies. It also aimed to send a clear message to the world. The court sought to hold those responsible for the Holocaust accountable, no matter their rank or role. Paradies, as a low-ranking guard, represented the ordinary individuals who enabled the Nazi machine to function. The verdict was swift. Ewa Paradies was found guilty of crimes against humanity. The court concluded that her actions were not merely a result of following orders, but were carried out with intent and cruelty. She was sentenced to death, a punishment that reflected the gravity of her crimes. Ewa Paradies' execution was carried out on July 4, 1946. Alongside other convicted Stutthof personnel, she was publicly hanged in Gdansk. This was not a typical execution, but a public event meant to serve as a powerful statement of justice and retribution. The scene was one of grim finality. Thousands of locals gathered to witness the execution, a rare instance of public punishment in post-war Europe. For many, it was a cathartic moment, a chance to confront one of the individuals responsible for the immense suffering inflicted during the Holocaust. Reports from the execution describe Paradies as visibly shaken, though she maintained a stoic demeanor as she faced her fate. The gallows symbolized the weight of her crimes and the collective demand for accountability. As the execution was carried out, it marked an end to her story, but left lingering questions about justice, morality, and the human capacity for cruelty. The legacy of Stutthof and guards like Paradies is a call to remember the victims and to ensure that the horrors of the Holocaust are never forgotten.